All right. Take 1,300 and kajillion. I feel like there's been so many lovely interruptions. Not lovely, I fib, but really challenging interruptions, one after the other. And actually this kind of uncomfortable, it doesn't quite sit right mood is part of this new moon in Virgo. So just a couple of hours, in just a couple of hours, the sun will move into Virgo and the moon joins just a couple of hours after that. So it's very, very much the whispering beginnings of Virgo season that we have this new moon. So it's helpful for me to think about, where we're coming from before we come into Virgo, which is Leo, and then where we're going a little bit. So with the Leo, it's like, oh, hi, I'm here, look at me, aren't I lovely like the sun? And then we come into Virgo and there's much more of a gesture of like coming back to yourself. And we find this in the Northern Hemisphere, a little bit with the seasons too. In Leo, there's this time, there's like really about like the sun and the outside and the activity and the meeting of friends and going to see things, very, very extroverted. And then when time, it's time for school to start again, it's time to kind of get your ducks in a row, and it brings you a little bit more back to yourself. On this journey, as we move through the zodiac with all of the planets again and again on repeat through these different archetypes, we can see it as a continuation. So, Virgo comes after Leo, and after Virgo comes Libra. And Libra is really this point in the chart, really the natural chart, where you move from being busy with yourself to really coming out to meet the other. And so often Virgo is described as preparation and refinement, so that we are ready to go into relationship and meet the other. Now, one of the archetypes that is, and one of the major arcana tarot cards that's connected to Virgo is the Hermit. And this is one of the gestures of the Hermit, where it's really this turning inward. So let's look and see what a hermit is. For me, I don't think a hermit is just someone who locks the door and blows off all their responsibility and watches Netflix the whole time or whatever. It's not just this rejection of the outside world out of like loathing or being uncomfortable and not wanting to deal with it. Rather, to be a hermit, it's actually giving up something of the worldly desires that we all have, or giving up some relationship to a culture that we're living in, or giving up really the daily life of family in order to actively pursue a relationship with the divine. So I connect it to the yogi or a guru or like a monk or a nun who's going into retreat. That's what I connect hermit to. And this Virgo element of really kind of coming back to ourselves in order to refine ourselves is so true for the hermit. So in retreat and in this process of allowing that retreat to become something sacred because you've sacrificed something, this outside contact, in order to get into this inner contact, that step is really what I am curious about. So when we turn inward, when we retreat from the distractions and the entertainment, then we notice our incongruencies. Then we notice kind of what needs like smoothing out, or what needs sharpening. There we see what habits, what attitudes, what perspectives we want to transform in order to be able to hear the divine or connect to spirit more clearly, so we can be ourselves, so that then we're ready for the other. Whether the other is, coming into relationship, or the other really is the divine spiritual world. And so Hermit, I love the archetype to connect to Virgo, and such a wonderful meditation at the beginning of Virgo season to see if it helps nudge you into something. But there's another layer to this connection to the tarot card, the Hermit, and that is that the Hermit is actually connected to the Hebrew letter Yod. Now, the letter itself, it's a very simple, very small letter, but it has a very deep and really strong potency to it because it means the hand of God. In our astrology right now for the new moon and the mood of this new moon, this is so fitting because we have the sun-moon conjunction in quincunxt to Pluto in Aquarius and quincunxt to Saturn conjunct Neptune in Aries. And both of these quincunxes, they form like an arrow with the sun and moon at the point of the arrow. And this configuration gets that same title as that Hebrew alphabet letter, the Yod. And so astrologers refer to it as like the finger of God, and that this arrow is actually pointing you somewhere. And it's not so much an arrow as it is a slingshot, because really where you want to go is directly across from where the sun and the moon are. And so right now we see that that point would be to go to 0 degrees Pisces. Now let's unpack that a little bit. So we have intense planets connected to this. We have the sun and the moon. These are both our luminaries. This is, you know, our solar path and our understanding of that path, our character, feeling, all of these things that are connected to the sun and the moon. We have it in conjunction, so it's this new moon, this seed quality. We have Pluto, who is often attributed to be very intense and connected to transmutation, changing, transformation, death and rebirth. And then we have Saturn and Neptune, which is, you can think of this maturing of our vision. We can think of it as growing out of delusions that have served us for a long time, perhaps. None of them are like, oh, lazy, lackadaisical. That basically means, you know, light and fluffy. None of these aspects are that. They're intense. And I mean, come on. If I were to say to you, yeah, and then the finger of God came and you go, ooh, that's like a little uncomfortable. You know, the finger of God, the hand of God. This is not something that is going to feel light and fluffy like a good dream. It's more going to be like, oh, I don't want to, or that's not what I expected, or that's uncomfortable. And I imagine that's also particularly the mark of any beginning of Virgo or beginning of becoming a hermit, how uncomfortable that new step is to say, no, I'm going to sacrifice my pleasure here. Instead, I'm going to come into my discipline so I can connect to my vision of how to reach a new birth, a new place, transform through something. So if you've noticed feeling a little like, ooh, uncomfortable with this new moon energy, just ask yourself, you know, where is it that I feel like I want to smooth out, or where is it that I want to like purge something or purify something, that I'm more in alignment to coming into contact with myself, coming into contact with the divine. A little bit like, where do you need to be a hermit right now so that you can really hear the voice of guidance? Oh, that's a little bit the feeling for me of this new moon. So with so much love, I hope that your retreat or your sacrifices open your heart. Happy new moon.